Hi, my name is Rahul Sanad from Los Angeles, and I have a Tesla watch.
We do not make Tesla watches, I should point out.
It's electric. But
How much money did y'all spend with that kind of $5, $10, $20 incentive to get that critical mass going?
That was a fair amount. I think it was probably $60 or $70 million.
Oh, wow, okay, so it was a
Yeah,
substantial. Oh, okay, so we're not talking peanuts here. Yeah, this is.
Yeah, it depends on your relative scale.
Yeah,
it's a peanut to Google.
Yes, no, that's right. That's right.
Yes, peanut.
And a few years ago, people were laughing at you. Now, not so much. I mean,
Okay.
Like that. Anyway, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. What's the mood of Elon today?
The mood.
It could be anything.
I feel good.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right, we have a lot to talk about.
Great.
Where do you want to start?
Anywhere you'd like to start.
All right, China. Cryptocurrency, what they're doing.
That's my safe word, by the way.
Okay, good. What they're doing. Or cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it'll kill any
Good to know for later for us. Go ahead.
Cryptocurrency in China.
Yes, what they're doing around Bitcoin, etc. And then I'd like to pivot to what the U.S. is going to do around regulation.
Well, it would appear that they don't love cryptocurrency.
It appears like that.
Yeah, it's subtle, but you're hinting in that direction. I can't speak to exactly why they don't like it that much, but people can speculate for various reasons. China, by the way, is having some significant electricity generation issues.
Yeah.
So, actually, I think part of it may actually be due to electricity shortages in many parts of China. So, a lot of South China right now is having random power outages because the power demand is higher than expected. Crypto mining might be playing a role in that. I'm not sure.
This is further than that.
It is further than that. Well, I suppose cryptocurrency is fundamentally aimed at reducing the power of a centralized government.
Yes, it is.
And that they don't like that.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay. So what do you think is going to happen? Does this?
I mean, maybe the audience has other
The
ideas.
shares went up. It didn't matter after they announced this. They went down and they went up. You can change the shares of cryptocurrency more than China can.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
If it goes up, I suppose it is. I mean, I think there's an always long-term role for crypto, really people should think of any kind of money system, whether it's a store of value or currency, as really a form of information. If you apply information theory to money, whether it's cryptocurrency or some other form, and view it in terms of how good is it at sort of bandwidth, latency, jitter, dropping packets, which is, you could say, like fraud is like losing packets or something on the network, its overall security, then I think a lot of these things just make a lot of sense in that,
Sure.
in that regard. Like any form of money has no power in and of itself except as an exchange of value between people for goods or services, or to translate things in time, like a loan.
So is this the right thing for governments to do, to take control of it? Is it possible?
It is not possible to, I think, destroy crypto, but it is possible for governments to slow down its advancement.
So what should the U.S. government do? We had Gary Gensler on earlier, SEC chairman. He was calling it the Wild West of finance. What should they do, if anything?
I would say do nothing.
Okay, they're
Yeah.
not saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just let it fly.
Because?
Well, what do you think governments can do?
I think they can, like you said, I think they can ruin it. I don't think they can just slow it down. I think they can stop it. I don't think they can control it. And therefore, they may want to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm some, massive cryptocurrency expert. I think there's some value to cryptocurrency. I don't think it's like the second coming of the Messiah, which some people seem to think. It will hopefully reduce the error and latency in the money system, the legacy money systems, and reduce governments have a habit of editing the money database, which is like probably some ancient mainframe somewhere in Virginia running COBOL, FY. It's kind of bleak to think about that. When governments can't keep their hand out of the cookie jar and edit the money database, there's probably some value to that.
Okay, so what are you're saying you're not an expert, but you spend a lot of time tweeting about it. Now, you tweet about a lot of things. We'll get to that in a minute. But why is that? Why that's true? Why is that of interest to you, crypto? Because you become, I wouldn't say the crypto messiah, but you're close.
Crypto messiah.
That's going to be a tweet.
Oh no. Well, I mostly don't tweet about crypto. This is a minority of small number of tweets.
Okay.
So, I do know a lot about the money system and payments and how it actually works, as opposed to, say, how economists think it works. On a practical basis, just how money's just basically the monetary system is a series of heterogeneous databases that are not real time, with the exception of PayPal and a few others, and to reconcile on a batch basis. That may take anywhere from 24 hours to several days. So it's slow. That's just a lot of latency and jitter, and the ACH system has basically no security. And this has just been it was that way when PayPal started in '99, and it's still that way 22 years later.
So it needs reform.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to move on to when China. I want to stick with China for a second. You're operating there, selling there. What do you make of what they're doing to the tech entrepreneurs there, the tech moguls?
Where is Jack Ma?
Where is Jack Ma? I know. Do you know?
No, I was curious.
You have some means to find out, I'm guessing.
Maybe. I don't know. I think there are some changes afoot in China. I think part of this may be actually COVID related, in the sense that it's been quite difficult to have in-person meetings in China, and China really runs, the whole system is set up to run on the basis of in-person meetings. And the absence of these meetings for the past 18 months, I think, has probably led to things being worse than they would be if there were more in-person meetings.
Okay.
So I think as COVID lifts and the in-person meetings return, I think I think probably there will be an increase in the sort of trust level, and I think things will probably start heading in a more positive direction.
The trust level between tech and the government.
Yeah, both internally within China and with respect to people from the U.S. and other countries going and visiting and meeting with officials in the Chinese government. It's just China is very much set up to work with in-person meetings, and so COVID, I think, has impeded that. So I think things will improve most likely as the in-person meetings resume.
So they did these antitrust actions because they couldn't say hello.
I think not all of it can be ascribed to that, but it's some of it can be. We'll see. I suspect things will improve next year because of just more interaction.
Are you nervous about what you're doing there? It's a big market for you. You operate there.
Yeah, we've got a big factory in Shanghai, which is doing very well. The Tesla China team has doing great work. And we do well with selling in the Chinese market as well as producing cars for China and for export to Europe. So overall, things are going pretty well, frankly.
You're not worried about U.S.-China relations?
I don't. It's not. No, not especially right now.
Not especially. All right. So let's talk about space. You had a recent space. You sent up a bunch of civilians into space. You did not send yourself up.
No, I've not sent myself up. I suppose I will at some point. But my goal is not to send myself up. My goal is to open up space for humanity and ultimately set us on a path to becoming a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species.
Yes. So you don't want to go up yourself?
It's neither here nor there. I will go at some point.
What do you think of the other efforts to go to suborbital?
Suborbital is a step in the direction of orbit, but but just to put things into perspective, you need about 100 times more energy to get to orbit versus suborbit. And then to get back from orbit, you need to burn off that energy. So you need a heavy-duty heat shield because you're coming in like a meteor.
Yes.
So like orbit is roughly 2 orders of magnitude more difficult than suborbit. But it's still, good to do something in space.
What did you think watching those, both Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos doing that?
I thought it was cool that they're spending money on the advancement of space. I think we ultimately want to be, humanity wants to be, should want to be a spacefaring civilization and out there among the stars. And I think we really want, all these things that we see in science fiction movies and books, we want those to be real one day, not always fiction.
Right.
So I think it's good that people are spending their money advancing space technology.
So last time we talked, we didn't talk a lot about space. We talked about a whole bunch. We talked about meat flaps, which was Elon's word for speaking.
Yeah.
We're flapping our...
Yeah. Slow tonal wheezing.
Yes, that's right. When I sound like it right now.
That's what we sound like to a computer.
Right.
Like whale sound, slow down.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about space. So let's talk a little bit about where you think you've advanced with what you're doing. Because I think you're probably the most fast forward of all these efforts.
Yeah, so with respect to SpaceX, let's see. There's two, besides orbital human spaceflight and providing transport for NASA of astronauts and cargo to and from the space station, which we've been doing for a while now, over a decade. We have something called Starlink, which is a global internet system, and this is, I think, going to have some profound positive effects on the world because Starlink is really designed to serve the least served.
You have 1,300 satellites up right now, is that correct?
1,500.
And you want to put 30,000.
Yeah.
We'll get to space pollution in a minute, but explain what were the reasons for it.
Yeah, so in order to provide high bandwidth, low latency connectivity to a large number of people, you need a lot of satellites, and they need to be at low Earth orbit so that latency is low. The problem with satellites that are at geostationary orbit is that they are around 36,000 kilometers, whereas we are at 550 kilometers. So gigantic difference in latency. For the Starlink system, you could play like a competitive video game that's latency dependent and still be able to play it with Starlink. It's like browsing a terrestrial system, essentially. But Starlink is really, just to be clear, not a threat to 5G or terrestrial fiber or anything like that. But it's very well suited to low to medium density regions of the Earth, places where it is too expensive to trench fiber or put 5G cellular base stations, and so it's really a good. It kind of takes care of the people that just didn't get internet, or either the internet's too slow or too expensive, or they just don't have it at all. It's very well suited, a space-based system for serving like the least served, maybe 5% or something like that.
How big a part of your space business is it, from your perspective?
I mean, I think it's quite significant in that the launch side of things, just launching other people's satellites and serving the space station, probably tops out around $3 or $4 billion a year of revenue. Whereas if we can get to say 3% of global internet traffic, then that's roughly $1 trillion a year business. Then we can increase our revenue by an order of magnitude to more like 30 billion or something like that, and then we can use the proceeds from that to develop the rocket technology necessary to get humanity to Mars and to the Moon and elsewhere in the solar system. So so I think Starlink is good in and of itself for providing, like I said, providing internet access to the least served in the world. I think it's a fundamentally good thing in that respect. And also offering a little bit of competition in the cities, although Starlink can really maybe serve less than 5% of people in a city. It's just because of the way the spot beams from space are very big. So anyway, it's a very nice complement and a necessary complement to 5G and fiber. And like I said, it'll provide a revenue stream for us to develop our next generation rocket, which is Starship. With Starship, we're trying to achieve a fundamental breakthrough that is the holy grail of rocketry. That is to have a fully reusable orbital rocket. This is extremely fundamental. With Falcon 9, we have a mostly reusable rocket.
Which you recently proved it landed, correct?
We've been landing for quite a while now, but so we in fact, a number of our boosters are on their 10th reflight. So we've shown that reusing the boost stage can be done, and that it is economically sensible to do so.
What's the difference in price
between Falcon 9 and competitors?
in using a reusable rocket?
Oh yeah, sure. It's really gigantic. With Falcon 9, we still have to lose the upper stage. And you can think of each stage being like the equivalent of a jet airplane. So the boost stage is like the big jet airplane. Upper stage is the small jet airplane. We still throw away the small jet airplane every time. So Falcon 9 is able to be the most competitive rocket in the world because we recover the boost stage and the fairing. But still, our best case marginal cost of launch, not taking into account overhead allocation, is about $15 million.
Per launch?
Yeah, for 15 tons to orbit. Which is quite big. SpaceX, over the last year or so, has delivered about, I think, roughly 2/3 of all payload to orbit of Earth. And most of the remaining third is China, and then everyone else is kind of in the miscellaneous. So anyway, but we still have it's still $15 million mostly because of
What's the cost differential between that and what you're aiming for?
Yeah, so basically Falcon 9 is effectively about half to a third the cost of alternatives because of the reuse of the boost stage. With Starship, we should be able to get to the point where it's maybe 1% the cost of an expendable system.
So that would just be $1 million, right? Or
yeah, the marginal cost of launch we think can be it could be potentially under $1 million.
so is anybody
For
close?
over 100 tons to orbit.
100 more than 15. You said 15.
Yes, 100 tons likely, and with refinement of the design, probably 150 tons. So essentially, it would be 10 times the payload of Falcon 9 for 15 times lower cost. So
When is
it's,
that happening?
100-fold better. It's really profound. Essentially, with Starship, it is possible to make the economics close for creating a self-sustaining city on Mars and a base on the Moon for those who want to go there. So it's really very, very profound development, and that's what I'm spending most of my time on is driving the development of Starship.
Starship, so you can go to Mars, or you want civilization on Mars?
Civilization on Mars.
So what's first, the moon base or moon base first, correct?
I mean, the Moon is close, so we might as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
you might as well.
And it's practically right there, you know.
Excuse me. So you got a contract with the Defense Department to do a lunar lander. Which
From
is
NASA.
From NASA, which is being disputed by Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think I've expressed my thoughts on that front. I think he should put more of his energy into getting to orbit than lawsuits. You cannot sue your way to the Moon. Okay. You know how good your lawyers are.
Yeah. So why isn't he doing that?
I don't know.
I also like to make fun of his rocket.
I
Y'all make fun of each other's rockets.
I think it does have. It could be a different shape potentially. You know.
Could you explain from a technological point of view why it's that shape?
Well, if you are only going to doing suborbital, then your rocket can be sort of shorter. Yes.
So, have you called him and said, cut the shit, get bigger, or what?
I have encouraged him to emphasize getting to orbit. Yes.
You talk to him?
Not verbally.
Verbally? What is it, mind meld or
No,
what?
just
Tweet at him.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
tweet at him.
yeah, exactly. Subtweet, if you will.
Subtweet. So what subtweet? You do subtweet him. So what are you going to do with the lunar lander, and how do you get the moon base there?
Yeah. So Starship is designed essentially as a general purpose transport system to anywhere in the solar system because it is a propulsive lander. And with a propulsive lander, you can land anywhere that's got a solid surface. And it's also designed for orbital refilling. So you can get the Starship to orbit and then send tanker flights to refill it so that it has tremendous delta velocity. Basically, it can go very far from Earth orbit because you can refill propellant.
The moon base is important because?
Well, I think the moon base, certainly there's like a lot we could learn scientifically if we had a proper laboratory on the moon about the nature of the universe and, where we all came from and the early history of Earth and that kind of thing. Yeah, we have a science station in Antarctica, and we're still learning a lot from, our activities in Antarctica, and I think we could learn even more on the moon. So there's a lot of value, I think, to having and I think it'd be just freaking cool. I mean, come on. It's like, we got to, humanity, we got to represent here for humanity. Just have a base on the moon. I think everyone would be like, yeah, hell yeah, we got a base on the moon. That's cool.
Yeah. For tourism? What do you think?
No, so the
space?
science. I think a lot could be learned if you've got a sort of a science station on the moon, like we've got a science station in Antarctica and many other places. I think there is value that shouldn't be denigrated for people who want to experience going to orbit or going to the moon. When they do so, I think to some degree vicariously we all go with them. When in the Apollo program, when they landed on the moon, it was just a handful of individuals on the moon, but we all went with them vicariously. Humanity went with them. Like, if you did a poll of people on Earth and said, tell me, what do you think is humanity's greatest achievement of the, maybe ever? It's like landing on the moon. You know, and that's inspiring, I think, to kids everywhere.
So you just sent up 4 civilians. Is that space tourism you're doing? And by the way, you have to be kind of rich to do it. Like, from what I understand, I cannot afford to go to the moon, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got a bit more gravitas than, you know, metaphorically, figuratively, and literally, more gravitas than, you know, simply tourism. It's not like going to Disneyland. You know, it's like it's more profound than that. So sometimes people use tourism in a sort of a negative way, but I think, you know, especially with the inspiration flight, I think they really, I mean, you know, they filmed the whole thing in real time. You know, they shared their experiences with the world. It was a really cool group of people. I recommend watching the Netflix show Countdown.
Mark Benioff talked about it.
It's awesome. I didn't have anything to do with it, and the production value on the Netflix Countdown documentary is amazing, and you learn about the backstory of the people, and it's actually super.
Tourism. You don't like it, this is for science and for saving humanity, presumably.
Yeah, I think tourism. I think that there's an element of tourism to it, but I think, you know, there's also, you know, the technology is expensive at first. You can't just, when you're trying to develop brand new technology, it doesn't instantly become cheap and affordable. And think of like cell phones, and the early cell phones were really expensive and sucked, you know,
yeah.
Frankly. Like, you know, you think of like Wall Street One, where, you know, he's walking down the beach with the shoebox-sized cell phone on it, you know, talking to this. And so just like really expensive, and the tech wasn't that great. But if some number of people didn't pay for the expensive cell phones, there would not be the inexpensive cell phones that everyone can afford.
So we should thank billionaires for going into space.
I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be top of your thank you list, but I mean, it's not. I'm just saying that when there's new technology, it is necessarily expensive until you can refine the design and you can scale things up, and then you can make it more affordable. There's a common misconception that with some new technology, especially if it's a physical object, that you can just suddenly make it cheap and available, but you have to have many design iterations, and you got to scale up the production and get economies of scale. Like, we had this argument against Tesla for a long time, because people would say, like, well, why are you building this Tesla Roadster back in the day? It's basically, you know, it's an expensive toy sports car for rich people. And we're like, yes, it is. But there's no way we could build an affordable electric car as our first car. And if, you know, we just didn't have the capital, we didn't have the experience, and we needed to go through several technology iterations in order to get to something like the Model 3.
Right.
I actually wrote a blog about this because I knew people would be like, why are you making sports cars for rich people, as though we thought there was somehow a shortage of sports cars for rich people. We're obviously not. But you just gotta figure out the technology. You gotta go through multiple design. Like, how do you make something mass market and affordable? Many design iterations, many different versions of the technology. A lot of hard work, and then you've got to scale up the production rate so you get economies of scale. And those two things are what make any given technology available to the public. And basically, every technology that we take for granted today has gone through that
So the idea
evolution.
of getting to Mars will be affordable someday?
Yes, absolutely. It has to be. In order for Mars to be a self-sustaining civilization, it has to be affordable.
When you say that,
Enough people need to go, you know?
why do you want people to go when you just keep saying that? Because you're worried about this planet? Or you're just betting the odds are we'll either blow it up or it'll be the day after tomorrow movie?
No, I think it's really, you know, if you sort of look, you know, just sort of stand back, if we just step away from our sort of internecine squabbles and say, let's look at the big picture here. what set of actions can we take that maximize the probability that the future is going to be good for civilization and for consciousness? And I think we should regard consciousness on Earth as delicate, not just fragile. And what sort of actions can we do to ensure that it continues and that the scope and scale of consciousness expands? And I'm in favor of expansion because, if we want to understand what the universe is about and what's the meaning of life, and we need to get out there and find out. And the more we expand the scope and scale of consciousness, the better we will be able to understand what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe.
So when you get a lot of criticism, say, about Starlink, space pollution, you see a lot of stories about space pollution. Why is Elon putting so many astronomers get mad at you? Or with the rockets, so you have these big defense contracts that you're doing, correct? First time someone's broken into the area. How do you meet those criticisms? This is just small potatoes?
Well, first of all, with respect to the astronomers, we are in constant dialogue with the leading astronomers of the world and taking great pains to ensure that our satellites do not interfere with their telescopes. And I believe at this point they are satisfied that they will not. Like I said, we're taking great pains to ensure that the satellites do not reflect or otherwise interfere with the telescopes, including the most sensitive telescopes. So, there may be a few sort of amateur astronomers who are unhappy, but the professional ones are satisfied that we're taking reasonable steps to ensure that we are not standing in the way of science, nor would we ever want to. And we're also looking at launching some new telescopes using Starship, because Starship's a much bigger vehicle. We can launch satellites that have 10 times the resolution of the Hubble, which would be great for science. In fact, there's an exciting program working with Seoul Perlmutter at Berkeley on a big new space satellite, a space telescope, I should say. And I think we'll do more of those. So I think at the end of the day, Starship and SpaceX are going to do a lot to advance our understanding of astrophysics and astronomy.
You still want to, you said to me a couple of times ago we talked, you want to die on Mars. You still want to die on Mars.
Well,
just not on landing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not an impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that would be spectacular.
Yes, but you wouldn't get to enjoy it much, just a second or so.
Talking about
maybe.
a narrative for the rest of us.
Yeah, no, well, I was just asked, do you want to die on Mars? And I was like, well, I suppose if you're going to pick Earth or Mars, and it'd be cool to be born on Earth and die on Mars. I'm not like trying to make a beeline to Mars and just die or something. It's just that you got to pick one. You're going to die somewhere. Sure, Mars.
I've interviewed a lot of I guess they're biologists. They're worried about, essentially they said you have to be under the Earth, a couple 100 feet.
No.
You get short.
Definitely not a couple, not a couple hundred.
Feet,
you just need, first of all, half the time you're shielded by by Mars itself. That's half the radiation is just the planet shielding you. And then you want to maybe have I don't know, 3 feet of dirt-ish on the roof, or just kind of a thick roof. They'll be fine. So
you're not worried about becoming shorter and stupider by moving to Mars?
No, I think we might become taller, actually, on Mars. A little bit taller, yeah, because the gravity is roughly 40% that of Earth.
Okay, that would be good for me. When you think about...
But I do think there's an important thing if you think of the various great filters, if you feel familiar with the sort of great filter of thought, one of the filters is, do we become a multi-planet species or not?
Right.
So that is at least one of the great filters, and I think it would be great to pass that and have be a multi-planet species where the critical threshold is for a Mars city, if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason, whether that is civilization on Earth, it could be a mundane reason or it could be World War III. But does Mars prosper or die out? And if Mars is missing anything at all, like the civilizational equivalent of vitamin C, then it will eventually die out. So you need to get to the point where a Mars city is self-sustaining. Even if the ships from Earth stop coming, then you have passed the great filter, or at least that particular great filter. And I think we should endeavor to pass that great filter as soon as possible.
When? You said pretty soon last time we talked.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should really try hard to make it happen this century, before the end of the century.
You'll be pretty old.
I'll probably be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on Mars.
Well, I mean, I'll, pop over there when I'm old or something.
Okay. So one of the things you're doing is a lot of government deals. You're doing this lunar lander. You did the rocket one. You're getting billions from $2.9 billion, is that right?
Well, right now we're not getting anything because we're being sued.
Right, that's right. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're getting a lot of money.
Well, hopefully we'll get it.
Right, when it's over.
Yeah.
And he fixes his
I mean, most of our launches are commercial, to be clear.
Yes, I understand that. But you're doing a lot of government work.
Sure.
What is that like, working with the government?
I mean,
Is that important to your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important part of the business. I mean, bear in mind if you're in any industry, like let's say you're a pencil manufacturer, okay, about 40% of your pencils are going to go to the government.
Right.
The government's about 40% of the economy. If you're a shoe manufacturer, about 40% of your business is going to be with the government. So, it's to be expected that any company is going to have most companies are going to have a percentage of business with the government, state, federal, and local, that is proportionate to the GDP of the government.
So one of the criticisms of you is you don't pay enough taxes, if any. Can you address that? Because here you are getting money from the government. You obviously want a functioning government to be able to build all kinds of things and services. How do you look at that trade-off?
Well, I mean, there was a bunch of very misleading stuff that was published by ProPublica. And really that was some sort of trickery, and really they did themselves no good service by doing that. So first of all, with respect to the government contracts that SpaceX wins, our aspiration is to do the most for the least. And if you look at all the contracts we've won them because we're the best price. We have a better service at a lower price. They weren't just handed to us.
I don't think they were. That's what I'm saying. In fact, you called me and said, we finally got in after years of sort of this backslapping. I think it's a great thing. That is a great thing.
Absolutely. I mean, for the lunar lander, just taking that as one example, our bid was half the price of the Blue Origin Lockheed bid. Half. So for a vehicle that does basically 10 times more or 8 times more perhaps, our price was half.
Okay.
And NASA has a mandate to get back to the moon, so we saved taxpayers like $3 billion relative to that contract. So I think that's a good thing. With respect to my personal taxes, I don't actually draw a salary or anything. My cash compensation is basically zero.
Which is a good thing, because income is a problem for most people, because they pay taxes on income. That was the whole point of the story, I think.
Yeah. So I do have stock options that vest, and so in the years that but I basically with Tesla and SpaceX, I just have not really bothered to sort of take money off the table, which is most people do. They sell some of their stock and they take money off the table. And for me, I just said, my money will be the sort of, it was the first in and it'll be the last out. The success of SpaceX and Tesla was far from assured, and there are many times when it looked like the companies would, and they skirted bankruptcy many times, but I never tried to take money off the table. And now this is trying to be turned around and made into a bad thing, and that's messed up. But when my stock options just before my stock options expire, then I am forced to exercise, and my top marginal tax rate is 53%. So I don't think that's particularly low, and it's going to go up next year. It's like probably 57% or something.
When you sell.
Yes, and I have a bunch of options that are expiring early next year, so a huge block of options will sell in Q4 because I have to, or they'll expire. And my top marginal tax rate is 53%.
So you eventually will pay a lot of taxes.
Massive, yeah. I mean, basically, the majority of what I sell will be taxed.
I don't think it was alleging illegality. It's that wealthy people got to borrow against their stock.
Yes, they were saying that like somehow borrowing is a trick to get away from paying taxes, but it's important to bear in mind that we've had a very long expansion in the economy, maybe the longest ever, and borrowing against stock is all sort of fun and games until you have a recession and you get the margin calls, and then you go to zero, which happens basically every time there's a recession.
Right.
Stocks don't always go up; they go down.
Yours seems to.
Most stocks have gone up, including some questionable stocks, frankly.
Are you talking about yourself? I'm sorry.
I think.
Are you surprised by how much it's gone up and how wealthy you've become?
I mean, I have literally gone on record and said I think our stock price is too high, in my opinion. And this did nothing to stop the rise of the stock price.
No.
So, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? You know, I'm not the one making it go up. But I think it's important to bear in mind, like my actual tax rate is 53%. They try to make it sound like basically it was a big increase in the value of the Tesla stock, and then they added up. They just very selectively poked at the numbers to make it sound like I was paying very low taxes. But in fact, my taxes are very high. They're like over half.
When you pay them, when you will pay.
Yes, and a huge amount will be paid in the next 3 months because of expiring options. And there was like 1 year where I think my taxes were basically zero. And the reason for that was because I'd overpaid taxes the year before. And I forgot to mention that.
You didn't call them back.
I gotta call them back. They have no interest in the truth.
Oh, okay, all right. Let me ask you a question. Twitter. Let's finish with Twitter and then let's get to questions from the audience. What's going on with you and Twitter? I am a Twitter addict. I say the wrong things all the time. What is it? Someone explained it to me, who's very close to you, saying it's your release valve. This is where you feel better.
Yeah, I think I said some people.
It's your happy place.
Some people use their hair to express themselves. I use Twitter.
Do you regret any of it or not? You are kind of prominent.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Walk us through when you decide to do a tweet. You go, no.
Well,
yes.
I think about it for hours.
Do you?
And I consult with my strategy team.
You just literally go, yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm wasted and I've gone. Let me shoot myself in the foot. Bam. Now let me shoot myself in the foot. Bam.
Yeah.
That describes some of my tweets.
Yeah. Are you worried about any SEC involvement in your tweets going forward?
What does that stand for again? I mean, I know the middle word is Elon's, but I can't remember the other two words.
You need to answer me. You need to answer me. Are you worried they're going to say, Elon, stop fucking tweeting?
You talking about the Short Seller Enrichment Commission?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short seller enrichment.
That's their new name.
Is it?
Yeah.
Can I ask about the particular recent tweet you did about, you did one great tweet about time, saying time is the currency, which I thought was beautiful.
Time is the ultimate currency, yes. No matter what resources you have, you can't wind back the clock.
It's true.
Yeah.
No matter how rich you are.
Yeah.
But then you did the Biden tweet. Can you explain that one?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so, you know, like Biden held this EV summit. Didn't invite Tesla. Invited GM, Ford, Chrysler, and UAW. An EV summit. on the White House. Didn't mention Tesla once, and praised GM and Ford for leading the EV revolution.
So you were pissed.
Does this sound maybe a little biased or something? And then, just not the friendliest administration. Seems to be controlled by the unions, as far as I can tell.
So, are you waiting to get Trump back?
No.
Who would you like to be president besides yourself?
I would not want to be president at all. Sounds like no fun being president.
What do you think is going to bring our country together, if at all? Moving to Mars, what?
Well, I think if there was some moderate, sort of centrist president, then I think that would help. I think everyone just wants. I think most people want a president who is just a very competent, executive. Not too far left, not too far right, and everyone would be like. I think most people would prefer that. When it comes down to the election, you've got two choices. You're like, maybe you don't love either choice, but you got to pick one.
Do you think that'll happen?
Do I think there will be what?
Centrist.
I hope so. Yeah, hope so. Oh, that'd be nice.
What about democracy?
I'm not super worried about democracy. Are you worried about democracy?
A smidge.
What concerns you?
A lot of the dialogue is getting a little. I study propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
It's worrisome. The fact that it can't happen here, it certainly can. I'm a Philip Roth kind of person. So.
Yeah.
But we're both having a lot of children, so we must believe in the future.
Yes, children.
We have 10 children between us, correct?
I believe yes.
You're slightly ahead, but you've got a rocket. Anyway.
I do think there is, I think a lot of people think that there's too many people on the planet, but I think there's, in fact, too few, and that the possibly the single greatest risk to human civilization is the rapidly diminishing birth rate. And the facts are out there for anyone to look at. But a lot of people are still stuck with, Paul Ehrlich's book, Population Bomb. And it's like, that was a long time ago. That is not the case today. And there was a massive notch in demographics last year because the birth rate plummeted, and also this year.
So more children.
So, I mean, if no babies, no humanity. You got to come from somewhere.
Okay, we're going to end on that. We need questions from audience because there's a lot of great questions.
Hey, Alana. I'm Ronan Levy from Field Trip. We spent a lot of time talking about outer space. We want to ask you about inner space. And the question specifically is, do you spend time thinking about humanity's somewhat destructive tendencies before sending people to Mars? And specifically, you've talked about the subject of DMT, and curious to know what role you think psychedelics may have in addressing some of the more destructive tendencies of humanity.
We're going to talk about this tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I think generally people should be open to psychedelics. Yeah. So, yeah, clearly it's a. I mean, yeah. A lot of people making laws are kind of from a different era. So I think as the new generation gets into political power, I think we will see greater receptivity to the benefits of psychedelics.
Does humanity's tendencies right now concern you? Like about before we go to Mars?
I mean, humanity's tendencies, we are at a very peaceful moment in history. So, you've got to separate the sort of news headlines from the reality. I think, like Steven Pinker at Harvard has really pointed this out. Like, we're actually at the lowest violence per capita in human history. It may not seem like that, but objectively, those are the statistics. That's not to say there's no violence or there aren't things to be improved, but it's, it's actually quite good. Just like I said, big picture-wise, I think we want to take the set of actions that maximize the probability that the future is good, and that civilization continues, and that the sort of this small candle of consciousness in the void that is humanity continues, and the candle does not go out.
Okay, next up here.
Hello, my name is Lena. I'm a student at the University of Chicago, and I also have a podcast called Kinda Sorta Brown. So my question centers a little bit what you talked about concerning that, you're building this world for not enough people yet, but the people that now are here. But concerning young people, how do you actually build infrastructure to make sure that you're not just building resources for people to be in Mars, but actually putting them in positions of power politically, or educating people who don't have access to learn about space, technology, etc. How do you actually teach young people and bring them? And do you feel like that's your role, or is it your role to just build the spaceship to Mars?
Well, our primary goal is to create the technology necessary to get people to Mars, in the absence of which, it's somewhat academic. So we don't want to get too distracted from our primary mission of we got to make it at least possible to go to Mars, and we want to do so as soon as possible, and make access to Mars as widely available as possible, as affordable as possible, so that if somebody wants to go, they can. So that's our primary mission. There are many good causes in the world, but we got to be careful that we do not try to take on too many. There are many noble missions, but we have to pick our battles and say, okay, let's just make sure we get this done, because nobody else is doing it. And if SpaceX doesn't do it, I'm not sure how it will happen. I think this is at least right now, SpaceX is the only hope. So we've got to get this done, and it's far from done. We've got a long way to go. Starlink, in terms of providing internet connectivity to people that really don't have it, or it's very expensive, I think will be helpful in empowering a lot of people who are disempowered today. So I think that's a good thing too.
Right, next.
Hi, Techno King. How do you respond to allegations
You call him
that...
Techno King?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is my formal title. I filed that with the SEC.
Got to be respectful, Kara.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you respond to allegations that you're a living cybergenetic organism sent from the future to save us? And secondly...
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
He's good. And secondly, what do you think the probability is that general purpose blockchains that have greater utility will eclipse the value of like a finished product in Bitcoin?
I'm not sure how to answer that last one. I think just generally public ledger stuff is good, because I'm a fan of open source and just sunlight being a great disinfectant, and the less things occur in the dark, the better. It's sort of a cryptic. Basically, blockchains are it's a cryptographic ledger, an open. So I think that there's probably a lot of good things that can be done with that. So.
The first question.
I said I could neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. Right here.
Hey, Elon. Alex Heath with The Verge. The question's on the self-driving beta you guys are rolling out.
Yeah.
Curious why you're encouraging people to not share videos, making them sign NDAs. Just be curious to hear.
No, there's a lot of videos being shared.
But the NDAs.
Pardon me?
The NDAs for the full self-driving beta?
I don't know. people don't seem to listen to the NDA. I mean, I'm not sure there's. Yeah, I don't know why there's an NDA. We probably don't need it. And people just are ignoring it anyway, so I'm not sure it matters.
All right. So I'm going to ignore this. I'm going to keep getting questions. Let's do two.
Hi, Elon. Zia Yusuf from BCG. Could you talk a little bit about AI and robotics? And you've expressed concerns in the past, but building some as well. What do you see as the issues that we do have to solve on that front?
Well, I've said for a long time I think AI safety is a really big deal. And we should have some regulatory agency that is overseeing AI safety. But there is not yet currently any such thing. And just generally any kind of regulatory agency done by the government usually takes years to put in place. After the population collapse issue, I think AI safety is probably the second biggest threat to the future of civilization. Like I said, I'm not quite sure what to do with it. Tesla is arguably the world's biggest robot maker because we have basically semi-autonomous cars that will ultimately be fully autonomous. And we are building a humanoid robot that will be basically like the car but with legs. And I kind of held off on doing that for a while because I certainly don't want to hasten the AI apocalypse. But clearly, if you look at Boston Dynamics and like those humanoid robots are going to happen. So they're either going to happen with or without Tesla. So it's like Tesla, I've got a lot more ability to ensure robotics safety and AI, and I'll try my best to do that.
What would you do?
No, we can't do more. Sorry, we got to quick.
First, thanks for making the first car I ever loved. I love the
great.
car. My wife insisted I ask this question if I got here. We also have way too many children.
That's probably great.
If there's any chance that you could put a roof rack on the X, that's what she's looking for. We need a roof rack on the X. If you could figure that out, that's almost more important than going to Mars. We have not figured that out.
I mean, it's tricky because we have the fancy doors.
They're awesome.
The doors are awesome, but if you have a roof rack, it's like, how do you stop the doors from smashing on?
I heard you were smart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, the Model Y has a roof rack, though.
It's not big enough for all the kids.
Really? It seats 7.
Not normal kids.
Okay.
What do you have, separate cars for your children?
Elon, thanks for
it does have a tow hitch. You can tow your stuff.
Those are the last two questions.
Elon, thanks for the Plaid. It's a great car. As we're all, waiting for full self-driving.
Plaid's awesome. Really, it's awesome.
We might have to argue a bit about the yoke, but we're getting accustomed to it. It's a great car.
It's like something different, and it's different, and people sometimes don't like the different thing. But
how much did your kids push you on the yoke?
Great.
Was it your kids?
Blame me
my
for the
kids
yoke.
love the
it's
yoke,
my fault.
so that works for them. Anyway, really quick. Look, we're living in this in-between time between we drive our cars ourselves and the cars drive themselves. They're semi-autonomous. For those of us in the industry, those of us who understand something about technology, about machine learning, I actually like it. It's pretty easy. It fixes my mistakes. I fix its mistakes. A lot in the press, though, about, and Google's position certainly, is this is like the worst place to be, right? Because people are going to get checked out and the cars are going to drive themselves into. What do you think about the ML human hybrids that we're kind of, embracing right now? How long are we going to have these crossover periods? I know you believe FSD is around the corner. Do you think this is really a problem, or are we going to teach people to deal with ML?
Well, I mean, the transition period to new technology is always a little bumpy.
Fair enough.
But I think we published the safety stats, like basically miles driven on autopilot and miles driven manually, and it's an order of magnitude different. So, like, people can say, oh, well, you're playing with the statistics. I'm like, listen, we're just saying miles driven on autopilot, miles not driven on autopilot, and there's a factor of 10 difference. So, I mean, even if we were, like, we're not fiddling with statistics, that's just, this is not subtle, is what I'm saying. It's not subtle. The truth is that people are actually not great at driving these 2-ton death machines, you know, and people get tired, and they get drunk, and they get distracted, and they text, and they do all sorts of things they shouldn't do. And then the cars, they, you know, crash, basically. Now, when we were embarking on the autonomy front, someone told me a thing that's quite true, which is even if you, for argument's sake, reduce fatalities by 90% with autonomy, the 10% that do die with autonomy are still going to sue you.
Right.
The 90% that are living don't even know that that's the reason they're alive. Nonetheless, I've had many conversations with the Tesla Autopilot Full Self-Driving team, who are just an outstanding group of people, and saying, like, listen, guys, it is better to pursue, like, the reality of doing the right thing matters more than the perception of doing the right thing. And as long as we are confident that we're doing the right thing, even if we are criticized and sued and all that, we should nonetheless do the right thing and not care about simply the perception of the right thing.
Okay, last question, sorry.
Rick Cutter with Cloud for Utilities. Thank you so much for the hard work you've done with Tesla driving the EV market. As we move towards more green energy, utilities are getting rid of their fossil plants, coal plants, investing in renewables. There's a difference in the economic output they can deliver. Are you concerned at all as the growth of EVs continue? Do you think we could have a supply chain problem with energy down the road?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. The full answer is lengthy. I'll try to give the short version. The electricity demand, roughly, if we shift all transport to electric, then electricity demand approximately doubles, maybe a little more than doubles. And this is going to create a lot of challenges with the grid, especially for distribution to neighborhoods. And this is why Tesla has the product, the solar roof and solar retrofit, is because even if you increase sustainable power generation at the utility level, you're still going to have a distribution problem where you need new high power lines, new medium power lines. You need to dramatically increase the size of the substations, which means you're going to have to start knocking down houses to increase the substation size. This is really unworkable unless you have significant local power generation at houses. And this is why I think it's actually very important that a necessary part of the solution is local power generation on rooms, on the houses of homes. Very important. And then, of course, we need large sustainable power generation developments, primarily wind and solar, but it needs to be paired with battery packs for steady state so it can provide continuous power. And a lot of good things are happening in this regard. The growth of solar in the last several years has been incredible. I think it's like a 40% compound annual growth rate in solar, and also a big growth in wind. I'm also kind of a pro-nuclear, pro-nuclear. You know, I'm sort of surprised by a lot of the public sentiment against nuclear. You know, I'm not saying we should go build a whole bunch of new nuclear plants, but I don't think we should shut down ones that are operating safely. But they did this in Germany, for example, and I think that was, and then had to create a whole bunch of coal power plants, and I don't think that was the right decision, frankly. So, yeah. Anyway, so we're one way or another, though, we're going to have a lot more electricity generation, and this is primarily going to come down to solar and wind paired with batteries.
Which will be our next conversation.
Okay. Sounds good.
Tesla, boring, solar.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great.
Can I ask you one more question? One time we talked a couple years ago, Code. You said we were in a simulation this past couple of years has seemed truly fucked up.
Yeah.
It feels like a bunch of teenagers from the future are just really smoking a lot of dope and fucking with us. Are we in a simulation?
I mean, my heart says no, and my brain says yes.
Elon Musk.
I wouldn't, for the prototype at least, I would recommend not dropping anything when you're near it.
The universe is the answer. And really, what are the questions we should be asking to better understand the nature of the universe?
Why don't you have Solar City providing your electricity?
This is a little sad. The reason we don't have solar power right now is that Tesla is not yet a good enough credit. I know this sounds ridiculous.
The point of doing this is to just give the hardcore smackdown to gasoline cars.
So I actually went to Russia 3 times to look at buying a refurbished ICBM. Because that was the best deal. And I can tell you it was very weird going there in late 2001, 2002, going to the Russian rocket forces and saying, I'd like to buy 2 of your biggest rockets, but you can keep the nuke.
What's the actual biggest failure that you've gone through to get to where you are?
Question?
I mean, we blew up 3 rockets in the beginning.
No, people are nervous and they're worried. You are aware of that. So knowing that, why would you do an April Fool's joke that you did?
Oh, because there were all these media articles saying that Tesla's going bankrupt.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I'll just do an April Fool's joke that we did go bankrupt.
But Elon, that's not funny when people are nervous.
I mean, it's April Fool's. People should, like, lighten up, okay?
Oh, my God, dude.
Everyone in this room is inspired by you. Who are you inspired by?
Well, Kanye West, obviously. That's what you said.
The boost stage, which is about 70% of the cost of the rocket. So
What cost is that? How much is that?
well, I mean, it's sort of on the order of $30 to $35 million.
Right, so you want to save that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I tell my team, it's like, imagine there was a pallet of cash that was plummeting through the atmosphere, and it was going to burn up and smash into tiny pieces. Would you try to save it?
Right.
Probably yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
We're going to need some volunteers to be colonists. Do we have any colonist volunteers here for Mars?
Actually, not many hands raised, by the way.
We saw the movie. We saw what happened. He got back.
Yeah. So it was good. I actually enjoyed the movie.
Do you think he could have gotten back like that? Was that plausible?
Well, I thought there was some connection. It was like 80% scientifically correct. But they did connect a series of improbable events.
Such as?
Say. Well, I mean, I don't think you can sort of just take off from Mars on an unguided rocket, really, and then prick your finger on the spacesuit and navigate to a spaceship. Right? Yeah. Not impossible, just extremely unlikely.
Do you think there is other intelligent life outside the Earth?
It seems probable, but I think this is one of the great questions in physics and philosophy, is where are the aliens? Maybe they're among us, I don't know. Some people think I'm an alien. Not true. Not true.
But maybe we are alien.
Of course I'd say that,
Maybe
wouldn't
we
I?
are alien.
Literally of any
What is
kind.
this? The largest rocket, the largest building? I mean,
Well, I mean, I think it's not scale for scale's sake. It's just like if you say, well, we want to accomplish these goals, then you kind of have to make a big thing. So,
okay.
Should tax things that are most likely to be bad rather than, like that's why we tax cigarettes and alcohol. Because those are probably bad for you. Certainly cigarettes are. And
I think Mars should really have great bars. The Mars bar.
It's all right. Crazy car to have as a daily driver, particularly on the 405.
So, but I understand when you got it,
Yeah.
you're driving down 280, and you wrecked it.
No, well.
And let me just tell the story, and then you can correct
all
it. Because the story's great, and I hope it's
yeah,
true.
let's see if the story that you tell is actually, how that compares to the reality, because the reality is pretty messed up.
So, hopefully the reality's better. So you wreck the car, you get out of the car, you're doubling over with laughter, and the person with you said, "Why are you laughing that you just wrecked this car?" And you said, "No, you don't know the funny part. It wasn't insured."
Well, the punchline's correct.
How do you plan a business where you know, the rocket business, you know some of these things are going to blow up on the launch pad? How does the business plan work?
I don't really have a business plan.
The plane thing is not a good idea in my view. The plane, and the reason I think is, like, intuitively it seems like a plane should work, but actually if you consider that really every mode of transport has a design that is appropriate to its medium. And if you're in space, wings are not very useful because there's no air. And then if you want to go somewhere other than Earth, there's also no runways. So these are important considerations.
Going back to Mars, what kind of government do you envision for the first Martian colony?
So we have to be careful
and what's your title?
Yeah, exactly. Emperor or God Emperor? I don't know. This might be too much. I don't know. If you watch my jokes here, not everyone gets irony. You know, must remember.
What would be your mediocre superpower? Now, this is absurd to ask you because Tony Stark is partially modeled after you.
Right.
So you actually are sort of have real. So we were going to ask you to
He doesn't technically
downgrade.
have a superpower, I guess, except like inventing technology or something.
Right. So we're sort of asking you to downgrade from that a bit. So an example of a mediocre superpower would be one of the best ones we've ever gotten is this guy who wished to temporarily detach his arm while spooning with a girl. Sometimes it's staying.
That's what he wants to do with a girl?
That's awesome.
But how? I mean, on a regular day for you, are you sleeping? You're not sleeping a lot, right?
Oh, geez, do I look that bad?
Actually met a woman I dated briefly in college who now works at Scientific American as a writer, and she related the anecdote that we went on a date. All I was talking about was electric cars. That was not a winning conversation.
So it was a bit of a monologue, was it?
Yeah, she said she said the first question I asked her was, "Do you ever think about electric cars?" She said, "No." She never does.
So you learn from that. That wasn't the best shut-up line.
Wasn't great. But it has recently it's been more effective.
There you go. I know this man.
But when we talk, I remember when you first told me that you were thinking about tunnels.
Yeah, when did I first tell you about that?
Years ago.
Okay, it's like a long time ago.
Yeah,
like
I thought you were joking.
Yeah, it was. I was joking, but.
Young people globally who want to be like Elon Musk. What's your advice to them?
I think that probably they shouldn't want to be.
You?
I think it sounds better than it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as much fun being me as you'd think. I don't know.
You don't think so?
No. There's definitely, it could be worse for sure, but it's. I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I want to be me.
Okay.
But if
Silicon Valley, accurate or not accurate?
The show?
Yeah.
It starts to get very accurate around episode 4. So it took a few episodes to kind of get grounded. The first few episodes struck me as Hollywood making fun of Hollywood's idea of Silicon Valley, which is like not on point. But then by about the fourth or fifth episode, season 1, it really starts to get good, and then by season 2, it's amazing. In fact, reality, the truth is stranger than fiction. All the crazy stuff you see in that show, Silicon Valley, the reality is way crazier than that.
Won't you stay a while?
Is there a parallel with how you build companies in that story?
I hope not.
Let's see what this thing can do.
Yeah, watch this. That could be awkward with a rocket launch.
And we're funding the company for merchandise sales. So thank you for anyone who's bought our flamethrower. You will not be sorry, or maybe you will. It won't be boring.
Come with me when moonbirds hits the sky.
And he's a designer, so he's good at sort of the styling of the cars, but he thinks it's all about styling, and it's not. It's really, this is, the reason we don't have electric cars is not for lack of styling.
Right.
We were first talking about the concept. Tunnels feel like a resolutely old school solution to a problem.
I'm sad that I invented tunnels.
Are you now like, fuck no, I am not starting another company? Or are you still thinking that?
Yes, that's how I feel. That is.
Whistle? Actually, can you whistle anything for us? I'm just curious. Are you actually good at it?
Yeah, not bad at whistling.
Wait, Fly Me to the Moon. Do you know how to whistle that?
Sure.
Fill my heart with song.
It's beautiful. That's really nice.
The challenge for us over the next 6 to 9 months is how do we build a huge number of cars? And frankly, we're going to be in production hell. Welcome. Welcome to production hell.
If you guys want to stand one on either side of Elon and grab the trophy, this is yours to celebrate. Let's get all together here. All right.
I'm curious, this may be an odd question, but one that I find fascinating. As you think here today back to your younger self, is there any advice you wish you could have given your younger self with hindsight, given what you know now?
Well, I mean, I give like a lot of advice.
There have been 3 flights so far, and each one has obviously the goal is to get into orbit. Each one has sort of not made it. How did you deal with the...
Well, we got to space.
Okay, you got to space, but it didn't... You didn't get where you wanted to go.
Not all the way.
Sorry.
Well,
So, but
you don't necessarily go all the way on the first few dates.
SpaceX has...
But it's just in terms of how to think about a life trajectory, perhaps, or how to pursue your passions?
I mean, I'm reasonably happy with how things turned out. So it's like...
Touche.
Yes. Not terrible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I didn't know.
It was like Mr. Hollywood's walked into town.
Okay.
And it's like, well,
Do I seem Hollywood?
maybe.
Have the world's biggest battery, have the world's biggest banana, have the world's biggest prawn.
And it's akin to the big pineapple or the big banana. It's just one of those kitsch
I don't sure what... Wait, is that a real thing?
Yeah. they're a tourist attraction, actually.
Okay. Oh, look at my...
Wait, was
so is it like the world's biggest banana or something?
Something like
okay.
that.
If you're going to succeed in being less wrong most of the time, you're doing great.
That's a great way of putting it. Aspire to be less wrong.
Mm-hmm. So this would be the furthest that life's ever traveled, the first life on Mars, and you'd have this great shot of green planets on a red background, and
I thought, okay, maybe that would get
the money shot. You got to beam
that
that
would be
back.
the money shot, yeah. I'm never quite sure whether that's a sort of a word you can use or not.
Now I'm realizing maybe I should.
Yeah, I didn't know its origins until somebody pointed it out to me, but. So.
Okay, moving back to that greenhouse on Mars. Yes.
The Model X is now over 2 years late. What went wrong?
Well, I do have an issue with punctuality, I have to admit.
If you buy a gasoline car that's not full self-driving, this is like riding a horse and using a flip phone. I'm like, hello. This is not wise.
Yeah, so back here we have the vault.
Okay.
Touch of a button. Just opens right up like magic.
That's very cool. And a good-sized bed, yeah.
If you want to mount like a missile launcher or something, you can do that.
Yeah.
So do you see this as missionary activity? You're over here trying to convert Jeremy Clarkson.
I don't think there'll be any converting of Jeremy Clarkson. That seems quite unlikely.
And how strong is that?
So, it's pretty stout.
People of Tesla!
Do you want to see the car? Well, we don't have it for you tonight. I'm just kidding, of course. It's April Fool's somewhere. All right, let's bring him out. Actually, what's important here is, but survives a nuclear explosion, or you get a full refund. Okay, full refund.
Hi, Elon. I'm John Younger, and I have to say,
Pour some more wine here.
absolutely,
I'm telling you, this is going to get better and better as the.
it is. Now, when you say civilization's fragile, do you mean because of this COVID-19 shit that's going on right now?
What's that? I never heard of it.
It's this thing.
Yeah, no.
It's like some people just get a cough.
No idea what you're talking about.
Other people, it gets much worse.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we don't think too much about what competitors are doing.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's important to be just focused on making the best possible products. You know, it's sort of maybe analogous to what they say about, you know, if you're in a race.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what the other runners are doing.
Yeah.
Just run.
Yeah.
Here we are on top of our giant ball of liquid oxygen. They say SpaceX has big balls, and it's true.
But, you know, to push that metaphor even more, are you afraid that whoever's hosting the race could tilt the race in favor of the Chinese racer?
I'm trying to figure out if there's any way to answer that question and not lose. You could power the entire United States with about, let's say, 150 to 200 square kilometers of solar panels. The entire United States. Take a corner of Utah. Not much going on there. I've been there. First generation was parachutes to a water landing, then you know, arguably sort of wings and gear, landing legs, landing gear. Then like the sort of third generation is propulsive landing with precision. I mean, if you saw a movie about the future with aliens landing, how do they land? Like that. Okay, obviously. They don't like, I mean, it'd be kind of weird if the aliens landed in the ocean with parachutes. I'm like, okay, nothing to fear. All right, welcome to the annual shareholder meeting. Coming to you live from Austin, Texas. So, we've had a fantastic year, thanks to the great work of the Tesla team. I'd just like to start off by just thanking the Tesla team for the incredible work over the past year to get where we are. Well done. So we have record vehicle deliveries, as we've already reported this, but you can see that there's a pretty, I mean, I think this might be the fastest that any large manufactured object has grown. Like, yeah, certainly one of the fastest, perhaps the fastest. It looks like we have a good chance of maintaining that into the future, really dependent on supplier challenges. So if we can get the chips, we can do it. Hopefully this chip shortage will alleviate soon, but I feel confident of being able to maintain something like this, at least above 50% for quite a while. The Model 3 became the best-selling premium vehicle globally, so of any premium vehicle. I mean, I almost got arrested at one point for claiming that we'd do 5,000 a week, literally. You're laughing now. Anyway, this is great. We think the Model Y will be the best-selling vehicle of any kind globally, so we think it will exceed the Model 3. I think we've got a good chance of it being the best-selling vehicle by revenue next year, and then I think quite likely to be the best-selling vehicle in just of any kind numerically in 2023. So basically, we need Austin to get online and Berlin to get online and reach volume production, and then I think that's going to happen. In terms of free cash flow generation, obviously we had some tough years back then. Things were looking a little dicey, to say the least, in 2017 and 2018. Don't want to go back there again. But we got through that, and now things are looking really good. So I think we'll see continued strong cash flow generation, and especially as you multiply unit volume times autonomy and increased efficiency in the factories. Because I think over time you'll see all manufacturers will make electric vehicles, and eventually all manufacturers will make autonomous vehicles. I think Tesla's open to licensing autonomy, because I think autonomy will be such a significant lifesaver and preventer of injuries that it is not a technology we want to keep to ourselves. So I think it will be morally right to license it to other manufacturers if they would like to use it. So. And of course, we made a lot of progress on cost reduction. So despite our average selling price actually going down significantly, because with the introduction of the Model 3 and Model Y, these were much lower priced cars, we've managed to still do decently well on gross margin. So this is, getting the average price down and gross margin up is very difficult, but we've managed to do that. So yeah, it's good. Our goal really is to make the cars as affordable as possible. We are seeing significant cost pressure in our supply chain, so we've had to increase vehicle prices, at least temporarily, but we do hope to actually reduce the prices over time and make them more affordable. Yeah, unfortunately, we've just expedited. Like, I mean, the sheer amount of money we're spending on flying parts around the world is just not great, but hopefully temporary. So, and we need a lot of batteries. Hence, Battery Day is what this shirt means. Very obtuse. But we are going to need a lot of batteries, and this is going to be a combination of batteries from our suppliers. And in supplier discussions, some of our suppliers have just asked me outright, are we going to just, put them out of business or something? I'm like, not at all. As many cells as you want to make and supply to us at an affordable price, we will buy. No limit. I'm like, oh, okay. So like, do you want to increase by 100%? Sounds good to me. So the basic plan is we're really going to order a lot of, and we have ordered a lot of batteries from suppliers, basically telling suppliers literally go as much as you can make, we'll take. And we'll prioritize batteries for vehicles, but then use any excess cells that we have in the Powerwall and Megapack. Because over time, we think the demand for stationary storage is going to be at least as high as the demand for vehicles. So sustainable energy, primarily solar and wind, is intermittent. And so the wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun doesn't shine all the time, obviously. And so you need batteries to buffer that power. So the fundamental pillars of a sustainable energy future are basically solar and wind. Those are the primary. Stationary batteries and electric transport. And if you have those three, then you have a sustainable energy future as long as the sun is shining. You know, so sometimes people ask me about fusion, and I like it as an idea. And by the way, I think it's totally doable. But there's a giant fusion reactor in the sky that shows up every morning, and zero maintenance. So I'm like, sounds like a good deal, you know. Or just catch a little bit of that sunlight and power Earth. A shockingly small amount of land is needed to power Earth. It's like, you know, a couple hundred miles by a couple hundred miles of solar panels will power the entire United States. So it's like, okay, it's not that hard. And then I believe we calculated you only needed 1 square mile of batteries. So you may think like, wow, a lot of batteries. 1 square mile of batteries, it's not that crazy. So anyway. So we've got a plan to reduce the cost per kilowatt hour of batteries, and our suppliers, you know, have similar plans. So this is really supplemental to our suppliers. We'll make cells, they'll make cells, we'll use them all. The fundamental good of Tesla, I think, is by how many years did we accelerate sustainable energy? This is the fundamental, I think, way to think of the value of Tesla. And so if we are able to accelerate sustainable energy by more years, that is good. Hence the need to grow quickly. We've got 3 new factories. Giga Shanghai has done an incredible job. And Giga Shanghai now exceeds Fremont in production. So actually, I'd like to just give a special hand to our Tesla China team. So it's the best quality, lowest cost, and also low drama. So it's great. But that said, we are continuing to expand our Fremont operations and expect to hopefully increase Fremont output by 50%. So, and that's still where we make all Model S and X's are made in Fremont. But it kind of makes sense, especially for the high volume vehicles, to have production that's at least on the continent where the consumers are. Otherwise, it's also not good for the environment to be shipping cars, you know, several thousand miles. So the basic idea is have the high volume vehicles be where the customers are, approximately at least. And then also great progress with building Giga Texas, which is where we are right now, and Giga Berlin Brandenburg. So just a hand for those teams as well. These factories will have cell production in them as well. So this will be really kind of raw materials in, cars out. So really, really big. Yeah, I mean, these things will be in like units of Pentagon, basically. Let's see, so impact report. There's a lot of, I think, interesting stuff in our impact report. We go into I think quite a lot of detail on all the things we're doing. And you know, Tesla is certainly a company that tries very hard to do the right thing in all respects. We try very hard to do the right thing in all respects. We don't always succeed. But if you're looking for a company where you say, is that company really trying to do the right thing?
that is Tesla. Okay, we really try. Okay, I mean, anyway. So, as I was mentioning, we've got the 3 parts of a sustainable energy future: solar and wind, but I think primarily solar will be the main source of energy, of sustainable energy, and energy in general. And then you need to store that energy with stationary battery packs, and then you need electric vehicles and electric airplanes and boats and whatnot. So, yeah, great. Yeah, and then the average life cycle emissions in the US, this is only going to get better as we move to a sustainable energy grid and electric vehicles. Then obviously we move to a fully sustainable energy economy, which is where we want to get to as quickly as possible. The sooner the better. And can there be a carbon tax? I mean, what the hell, you know? So people sometimes say like, oh, carbon tax, that would benefit Tesla. I'm like, yeah, but it would hurt SpaceX. So how about the carbon tax, which is really needed. So, see, battery materials are definitely uncyclable. Burden gas is not. CO2 is an extremely stable molecule. Mars's atmosphere has been primarily CO2 for billions of years. It's extremely stable. So sometimes people worry about methane. Do not worry too much about methane. Methane quickly breaks down into CO2. Methane is not a stable molecule. CO2 is extremely stable. And of course, you can recycle battery materials. So you can think of batteries as essentially high-grade ore. So you can either get your lithium and your nickel and the various constituents of the battery from rocks or from batteries. It's much better to get them from batteries. So batteries are basically high-grade ore. And Tesla has already started recycling, and there are lots of companies that are going to do recycling because it basically pays to do recycling for batteries. So we're seeing, increased extreme weather events, and there's like wildfires. And here in Austin, there was a massive snowstorm that turned the power off. I was actually in Austin for that snowstorm in a house with no lights, no power, no heating, no internet. Couldn't actually even get to a food store. If you could get to a food store, there was no food there. This went on for several days. However, if we had the solar plus Powerwall, the car would have had lights and electricity, and actually if you had a Starlink internet, you'd have internet too. So all the things you need for a prepper, basically. Doomsday comes, yeah, it could be helpful. So in factory safety, we made huge improvements on factory safety. We're now 18% better than the industry average. So this is great. It's always tough with safety as you ramp production lines and as you start up factories. But then once it's in steady state, then the injuries naturally decline because people get used to it and you iron out the issues. And so we're seeing excellent factory safety at Tesla. And our goal is to have the safest factory on Earth. And then AI Day, I think it was important to change the fundamental perception of Tesla because people they sort of think of Tesla as a car company, and yes, we make cars, but the AI part of Tesla was not well understood. Tesla is as much a software company as it is a hardware company, and we also do the chips. So we designed the full self-driving inference computer. We're designing a training computer that's going to be able to, we think, be the most efficient neural net training computer in the world by far. And we're seeing a tremendous response. So daily applicants by role. As you can see, it's basically, on the y-axis there. and then after AI Day, that's AI applicants increased dramatically. So I thought that was a very successful day. The team did a great job. AI is going to be a very important part of the future. Self-driving is obviously one of the functions. I obviously have mixed thoughts about AI, and we've got to watch out for AI being a danger. But it's happening either way, so I guess if we help do it, we can try our best to make sure it is positive, good AI, hopefully. Yeah. And then I'm excited to announce that we're moving our headquarters to Austin, Texas. Yeah. So just to be clear, though, we will be continuing to expand our activities in California. So this is not a matter of sort of Tesla leaving California. As I said, our intention is to actually increase output from Fremont and from Giga Nevada by 50%. So, but we're just hitting the sides of the bowl. I mean, if you go to our Fremont factory, it is jammed. I mean, it is jammed. It's like, whoa. And when we first went in there, it was like, we're like a kid in his parents' shoes. It was ridiculous, like tiny us and giant factory. And now we're like spam in a can here. Like, how do we fit more stuff? And it's tough for people to afford houses, and a lot of people have to come in from far away. And so it's we'll take taking it as far as possible, but it's there's a limit to how big you can scale in the Bay Area. So here in Austin, and our factory is like 5 minutes from the airport, 15 minutes from downtown, and we're going to create an ecological paradise here on the because we're right on the Colorado River. It's going to be great. So to emphasize again, continuing to expand in California significantly, but even more so here in Texas. So. All right, thanks for coming and thanks for tuning in. So, as Franz was saying, this is 9 years since we delivered the first Model S, the first car produced here in Fremont, so almost a decade. And I think we're really taken it to a whole new level with Plaid. Some of you may know that, I mean, basically our product plan is stolen from Spaceballs. So we've gone Plaid speed. So what we really wanted to achieve here is like, well, why make this really fast car that's crazy fast and everything? And I think there is something that's quite important to the future of sustainable energy, which is that we got to show that an electric car is the best car, hands down. So it's got to be clear. It's like, man, this is sustainable energy cars. It can be the fastest cars, can be the safest cars, can be the most kick-ass cars in every way. And that's why we did the Plaid. It's just to show hands down, this is the way to go. So, yes. Pressing slide. There we go. All right. So, we've made huge improvements from the original car. Well, actually, who here, has anyone here, probably some have, bought the early Model S, like the, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your support. You can see the huge improvements we've made. So, and it started off with good performance, but now with Plaid, we've managed to break the 2-second barrier, if you will. No production car has ever done 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. And this is a four-door car, seats 5 adults, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, this thing's moving. I mean, this is like what I call like limit of physics engineering. It's not relative engineering. It's like, what does physics say we could do? Because physics is the law and everything else is a recommendation. So, in addition to a crazy performance, it's also got a longer range. Even with the tri-motor high performance, it's got almost a 400-mile range. And in the dual motor configuration, it's got a 412-mile range. So, 420, give or take. So, that joke will never end. So, and we've also improved the supercharging speed, so you can get 187 miles of range in 15 minutes. So, yeah, so quickest production car, to be clear, of any kind ever made, like I said, first to ever break the 2-second barrier. Later tonight, you'll get a chance to drive around the track, and like this is really something you have to feel to believe. Because it hits you right in the limbic system. It's like, damn, like, whoa. Yeah. It is basically, what is the car that we can, how can we make a spaceship a car, So, hello. Let's see. Yep. And then in terms of additional stats, it's also the fastest production car to complete a quarter mile, so 9.23 seconds. It's got a 200-mile-an-hour top speed, over 1,000 horsepower, almost 400-mile range. Like I said, charges so fast, it'll be probably done by the time you have a coffee, basically. And talking about some of the sort of details behind it. So we have an all-new battery pack. And then something we're really proud of is the new carbon-sleeved rotors for the motor. So this is the first time that there's, to the best of our knowledge, there's been a production electric motor that has a carbon overwrapped rotor. So this is a super hard thing to do because carbon and copper have at very different rates of thermal expansion. So in order to do a carbon overwrapped rotor, you've got to wind it at extremely high tension. It's a very hard thing to do. We actually had to design the machine that makes the rotor. So no such machine existed before. It also means we can have the electromagnetic field be super efficient and have a tight gap even at super high RPM. And it's single speed from 0 to 200 miles an hour. So it's just, the RPM is so crazy that just the centrifugal force wants to expand the rotor. So the carbon overwrap actually holds the rotor, basically holds the rotor together. It's like madness. So, yeah. So let's see. In fact, we're going to show you the motor. In fact, you might have had a chance to see the drive unit. And we can go closer. I mean, this is really an amazing work of engineering. Yeah. There's just never been an electric motor like this. I mean, you could pick this motor up with your hands, and it can accelerate a 2-ton car to 60 miles an hour in 2 seconds. I mean, that kind of power to weight is insane. Yeah. So it goes, it goes up to 20,000 RPM and maybe a little more. So. Yeah, I was just saying, close look at it. So, let's see. Okay, let's switch back to the slides, I think. So we also were able to achieve the lowest drag coefficient of any car ever made. So, yeah. So really, I think Tesla engineering has outdone itself here. This is a car that looks good, but also gets an incredible drag coefficient. And this is the true drag coefficient of the car, including with wheels in motion. Sometimes you'll hear drag coefficients quoted, but that'll be without the wheels moving. And the wheels cause sort of air churn and incremental drag. And this is the actual drag coefficient of the car. So it's to have a good-looking sports car, have that lower drag coefficient is really tough. So. We also have the latest and greatest in heat pump, which is basically the HVAC system for the car. It's 30% better cold weather range and requires 50% less energy for cabin heating in freezing conditions. Yeah, so you'll see very little degradation in cold weather. And the radiator is twice as big for heat rejection. So you'll be able to actually do back-to-back 0 to 60s, go on the track, just haul ass, and as you'll see tonight, this car is just going to do over and over again, and it doesn't get winded. I think we got to take this back to maybe the Nürburgring. See what happens. And then, of course, when we first delivered the Model S, there were no superchargers anywhere in the world. So back in 2012, no superchargers anywhere. Now there are 25,000 superchargers all around the world. So, we opened 30 just in the last week. And we're just going to keep going so that you can basically travel anywhere you want with peace of mind, super easy, keep increasing the power of the superchargers. We're 250 kilowatts, so obviously that we'll start going to 280, 300, 350. Yeah. So. And then it's also engineered for maximum safety as well. So, in fact, this is designed to be our aspiration for this car. It still has to be tested by the U.S. government, but we think we can get the lowest probability of injury of any car ever tested. So. In fact, these are the actual NHTSA probability of injuries numbers. All top 5 cars with the lowest probability of injuries ever tested, all 5 are Teslas. So I mean, with the Plaid Model S, what you have is a car that is faster quicker than any sports car, and like faster than any Porsche, safer than any Volvo, in the same car. That's insane. It's like, yeah. So, and then the design, we've obviously made a lot of refinements to the exterior, and then we've completely redone the interior. So I think once you drive the new Model S, it really feels like you're driving the future. And other cars are going to, especially like non-Tesla cars, are going to feel very last century. So, all new interior. As you can see, we changed the orientation of the main screen, so it's easier to watch movies and that kind of thing in landscape. Yeah, exactly. I mean, in other notes, we have ventilated front seats. So, yeah. Anyway, I think it's really. You drive around and it really feels like, okay, we're in 2021. Great. We have this yoke steering wheel, which is a little different, but I think once you try it, you'll think it's great. The visibility of the main screen is super clear, especially for autopilot. So you can see the entire panoramic view you can basically see the mind's eye of the car. Yeah, it's really cool. So. And then we've gotten rid of the stalks. So, I think generally all input is error. So we want, if you have to do something that the car could have done already, that should be taken care of. The software should just do it. So you can actually just literally walk up to the car, it senses that you're approaching, unlocks the car based on your phone. It just basically pairs with your phone, knows that you're coming to the car, opens the door, extends the handle, you sit down, and you just drive. You don't have to press the drive or anything like that. The car knows you want to drive. It figures like, yeah, good guess, you know. So, and then it's using the autopilot system to know where the obstacles are. So obviously, if there's something in front of you, you want to go backwards, and if there's something in back of you, you want to go front, most likely. And then it will adapt to your to your needs. So if it sees that you're always doing this, you're changing to reverse or forward in particular situations, it'll try to remember that and geocode it to that location. So then you won't have to do it in the future. It will just keep minimizing the amount of input that you need to do until the car just reads your mind. So it's gonna be great. Yeah. So we've redesigned the interior. We've moved the interior so that the front IP is actually slimmer and thinner. So we were able to move the front seats forward, giving more room to the back seat, and we reclined the back seat more and reduced the interior trim. So basically, the current Model S, the back seat is not amazing, but the new one, it's actually a legit back seat. I'd say, it's like it's good. So you can. I think it's quite a comfortable back seat, and you've got also a rear screen, and you can control everything from the back. Yeah. So it's got dual inductive chargers for your phones in the back and dual inductive in the front. And it's a 36-watt power supply, so you can actually charge like your, laptop or anything. Basically, it's a 36-watt USB-C. Yeah. It can also pair with multiple Bluetooth devices simultaneously. So multiple people could be controlling music, or somebody could be playing a video game. So it's you can do multiple wireless things simultaneously. And then, similar to the Model 3 and Y, we instead of having air vents, we use intersecting columns of air. So, and we just vary the speed of the air. So you don't have to. There's no vents that you can see. And you can just touch the screen and move the screen around, and it'll just move the air wherever you want it. And the air is much more diffuse. It just feels like an invisible air conditioning system. It's great. So, and it's a tri-zone. So there's a zone for the rear, and a front and left front, right front zone. So. And then the 17-inch touchscreen is. It feels like a movie theater. The sound is incredible. And yeah, so you can really, it's like a home theater experience. So if you're sitting somewhere waiting, or for whatever reason, or at a supercharger, you can just catch up on what are your favorite Netflix show, or iTunes, or whatever the case may be, YouTube. And of course, you can also play video games. So. And the same thing for the rear. So you can, it basically, the system feeds all three screens, and so you can do things the front, rear. It's great. We have an all-new sound system designed by Tesla Audio, and we have acoustic glass throughout the car, so the car is very quiet when going down the highway. Even at very high speeds, like you're doing 100 miles an hour, it's still quiet. And this is a Tesla-designed codec, so it will keep uploading improved versions of the sound system. It's completely software-defined, so we'll keep tweaking it and dynamically adjusting to whether you're using streaming, or whether it's coming via Bluetooth from your phone, or different streaming services. It'll actually, and if the data rate changes, it'll adapt that. So basically, it always sounds good. And that's just going to get better. So, yeah. And then we've got an all new UI. So, really want waypoints. Okay, does everybody here want waypoints? All right, fine, we'll do waypoints. God damn it. All right. 2 weeks. All right, we'll do waypoints, fine. But obviously it also interfaces with your calendar. So if you just, basically if you just get in the car and you just sort of swipe down from Navigate, you don't have to enter anything, just swipe down. The car will automatically figure out if you want to go to home, work, or what's on your calendar. So it'll default to calendar priority, and obviously if you're at home and it's kind of a weekday or whatever, it assumes you're going to go to work. So you just swipe down, it automatically navigates to work, and checks traffic and gives you an optimal route. So it's just like a nice little easy thing. And you can actually set it to automatically generate the most probable route. So you just get in, and it's going to guess what route you want, and you don't have to press anything. Yeah. So anyway, the UI is like basically easy to move around, expand, contract, shift music to the left, to the right, and we're going to keep improving it. So it basically feels like a modern tablet or phone. So. And then it's not PS4, it's PS5. So I think there's never been a car that has state-of-the-art computing technology, state-of-the-art infotainment, where this is literally at the level of a PlayStation 5. So, yeah, I mean, if you think about the future where the car is often in autopilot or full self-driving mode, then entertainment is going to become increasingly important. So you're going to want to watch movies, play games, use the internet, just little things you want to do if you're not driving. And this is actual PlayStation 5 level performance. So we're going to try to do a gaming demo. Yes, it can play Cyberpunk. So this is somebody playing the car right now. This is playing live. Yeah. So it's like pretty great, So have fun in the game. It's gonna be great. So, all right. So high frame rate will do 60 frames a second with state-of-the-art games. Yeah. All right, so we got incredible performance, interior of the future. I think engineering that's practically alien. So, like I said, simultaneously the safest car in the world and the fastest. This is insane. So, we also got look at some things like the power curve. So, I think this really illustrates the difference. It maintains 1,000 horsepower all the way up to 200 miles an hour. This car crushes. All right. So, yes. All right, and deliveries begin now. So we're in production. We're going to deliver the first 25 cars now, and then basically should be at several hundred cars per week soon, and 1,000 cars a week probably next quarter. So please enjoy. We put a lot of work into this. I'd like to thank the incredible work of the Tesla engineering and production teams. So like, my hat is off to Tesla engineering, production, design, the whole group. They put their heart and soul into this, so hope you enjoy it. So let's deliver some cars. All right. All right. I'd like to thank you for leaving crazy person out of the description. So I thought, I was trying to think, what is the most useful thing that I could, what could I say that could actually be helpful or useful to you in the future? I thought I'd perhaps tell the story of how I sort of came to be here. How did some of these things happen? And maybe there's some lessons there, because I often find myself wondering, how did this happen? So when I was young, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got older. People kept asking me, but then eventually I thought that the idea of inventing things would be really cool. And the reason I thought that was because I read a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which said that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's really true. If you go back, say 300 years, the things that we take for granted today would be you'd be burned at the stake for. Being able to fly, that's crazy. Being able to see over long distances, being able to communicate, having effectively with the internet a group mind of sorts, and having access to all the world's information instantly from almost anywhere on the earth. This is stuff that really would be magic, or would be considered magic in times past. In fact, I think it actually goes beyond that, because there are many things that we take for granted today that weren't even imagined in times past. They weren't even in the realm of magic. So it actually goes beyond that. So I thought, well, if I can do some of those things, basically if I can advance technology, then that's like magic, and that would be really cool. And I also had sort of a slight existential crisis, because I was trying to figure out what does it all mean? Like, what's the purpose of things? And I came to the conclusion that if we can advance the knowledge of the world, if we can do things that expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we're better able to ask the right questions and become more enlightened, and that's really the only way forward. So I studied physics and business, because I figured in order to do a lot of these things, you need to know how the universe works, and you need to know how the economy works. And you also need to be able to bring a lot of people together to work with you to create something, because it's very difficult to do something as an individual if it's a significant technology. So I originally came out to California to try to figure out
how to improve the energy density of electric vehicles, basically to try to figure out if there was an advanced capacitor that could serve as an alternative to batteries. And that was in '95, and that's also when the internet started to happen. And I thought, well, I can either pursue this technology where success may not be one of the possible outcomes, which is always tricky, or participate in the internet and be part of it. So I decided to drop out. Now, obviously, fortunately, we're past graduation, so I can't be accused of recommending that to you. So did some internet stuff. Did a few things here and there. One of which was PayPal. And I think maybe it's helpful to say one of the things that was important then in the creation of PayPal was kind of how it started, because initially, the initial thought was with PayPal was to create an agglomeration of financial services, so to have one place where all of your financial services needs would be seamlessly integrated and work smoothly. And then we had like a little feature which was to do email payments. And whenever we'd show the system off to someone, we'd show the hard part, which was the agglomeration of financial services, which was quite difficult to put together. Nobody was interested. Then we'd show people email payments, which was actually quite easy, and everybody was interested. So this is, I think it's important to take feedback from your environment. You want to be as closed loop as possible. So we focused on email payments and really try to make that work, and that's what really got things to take off. But if we hadn't responded to what people said, then we probably would not have been successful. So it's important to look for things like that and focus on them when you see them, and you correct your prior assumptions. And then let's get some more. Going from PayPal, I thought, well, what are some of the other problems that are likely to most affect the future of humanity? It really wasn't from the perspective of what's the rank-ordered best way to make money, which is okay, but it was really what I think is going to most affect the future of humanity. So I think the biggest terrestrial problem we've got is sustainable energy, but the production and consumption of energy in a sustainable manner. If we don't solve that this century, we're in deep trouble. And then the other one being the extension of life beyond Earth to make life multiplanetary. So that's the basis for. The latter is the basis for SpaceX, and the former is the basis for Tesla and Solar City. And when I started SpaceX, initially I thought that, well, there's no way one could possibly start a rocket company. I wasn't that crazy. But then I thought, well, what is a way to increase NASA's budget? That was actually my initial goal. So I thought, well, if we can do a low-cost mission to Mars, something called Mars Oasis, which would land seeds with seeds and dehydrated nutrient gel, and you hydrate them upon landing, and then you'd have this great sort of money shot of green plants on a red background, and the public tends to respond to precedents and superlatives. And this would be the first life on Mars, the furthest that life's ever traveled, as far as we know. And I thought, well, that would get people really excited, and therefore increase NASA's budget. So obviously, the financial outcome from such a mission would probably be zero. So anything better than that was on the upside. So I actually went to Russia 3 times to look at buying a refurbished ICBM. Because that was the best deal. And I can tell you it was very weird going there in late 2001, 2002, going to the Russian rocket forces and saying, I'd like to buy 2 of your biggest rockets, but you can keep the nuke. That's a lot more. That was 10 years ago, I guess. So they thought I was crazy, but I did have money, so that was okay. And after making several trips to Russia, I came to the conclusion that actually my initial impression was wrong about because my initial thought was, well, that there's not enough will to explore and expand beyond Earth and have a Mars base and that kind of thing. But I came to the conclusion that was wrong. In fact, there's plenty of will, particularly in the United States, because the United States is a nation of explorers, of people who came here from other parts of the world. I think the United States is really a distillation of the spirit of human exploration. So, but if people think it's impossible, then, or it's going to completely break the federal budget, then they're not going to do it. So after my 3rd trip, I said, okay, well, what we really need to do here is try to solve the space transport problem, and started SpaceX. This was against the advice of pretty much everyone I talked to. One friend made me sit down and watch a bunch of videos of rockets blowing up. Let me tell you, he wasn't far wrong. It was tough going there in the beginning because I'd never built anything physical. I mean, I'd built like little model rockets as a kid and that kind of thing, but I'd never had a company that built anything physical. So I had to kind of figure out how to do all these things and bring together the right team of people, and so we did all that and then failed 3 times. It was tough going. Because the thing about a rocket is that the passing grade is 100%. You don't get to actually test the rocket in the real environment that it's going to be in. So I think the best analogy for rocket engineering is like if you want to create a really complicated bit of software, you can't run the software as an integrated whole, and you can't run it on the computer it's intended to run on. But the first time you put it all together and run it on that computer, it must run with no bugs. That's basically the essence of it. So we missed the mark there. The first launch, I was picking up bits of rocket near the launch site. It was a bit sad. But we learned with each successive flight, and were able to, eventually with the 4th flight in 2008, reach orbit. And that was also with the last bit of money that we had. So thank goodness that happened. I think the saying is 4th time's the charm. So we got the Falcon 1 to orbit, and then began to scale that up to the Falcon 9, which is about an order of magnitude more thrust. It's around 1 million pounds of thrust. And we managed to get that to orbit, and then developed Dragon spacecraft, which recently was able to dock and return to Earth from the space station. That was thanks. That was a white-knuckled event. Yeah, it's a huge relief. Still can't quite believe it actually happened. But there's a lot more that must happen beyond this in order for humanity to become a spacefaring civilization and ultimately a multi-planet species. And that's something I think it's vitally important, and I hope that some of you will participate in that, either at SpaceX or at other companies, because it's just really one of the most important things for the preservation and extension of consciousness. I mean, it's worth noting, as I'm sure people are aware, the Earth has been around for 4 billion years, and civilization, at least in terms of having writing, has been around for 10,000 years, and that's being generous. It's really somewhat of a tenuous existence that civilization and consciousness as we know it has been on Earth. And I think I'm actually fairly optimistic about the future of Earth. So I don't want to sort of people to have the wrong impression that I think we're all about to die. I think things will most likely be okay for a long time on Earth, but not for sure, but most likely. But even if it's sort of 99% likely, a 1% chance is still worth spending a fair bit of effort to ensure that we've backed up the biosphere, planetary redundancy, if you will. And so I think it's really quite important. And in order to do that, there's a breakthrough that needs to occur, which is to create a rapidly and completely reusable transport system to Mars, which is one of those things that's right on the borderline of impossible. But that's sort of the thing that we're going to try to achieve there with SpaceX. And then on the Tesla front, the goal with Tesla was really to try to show that what electric cars can do, because people had the wrong impression. We had to change people's perception of an electric vehicle, because they used to think of it as something that was slow and ugly and had low range, kind of like a golf cart. So that's why we created the Tesla Roadster, to show that you can be fast, attractive, and long range. And it's amazing how even though you can show that something works on paper, and the calculations are very clear, until you actually have the physical object and they can drive it, it doesn't really sink in for people. And so that I think is something worth noting. If you're going to create a company, the first thing you should try to do is create a working prototype. Everything looks great on PowerPoint. you can make anything work on PowerPoint. But if you have an actual demonstration article, even if it's in primitive form, that's much more effective for convincing people. So we made the Tesla Roadster, and now we're coming out soon with the Model S, which is a four-door sedan. Because after we made the Tesla Roadster, people said, "Oh, sure. We always knew you could make a car like that. It's an expensive car, and it's low volume, and it's small, and all that. But you couldn't make a real car." Like, okay, fine. We got to make that too. So that's coming out soon. Yeah. So that's I think where things are, and hopefully there are some lessons to be drawn there. But I think the overarching point I want to make is that you guys are the magicians of the 21st century. Don't let anything hold you back. Imagination is the limit, and go out there and create some magic. Thank you. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you for leaving crazy person out of the description. So I thought, I was trying to think, what is the most useful thing that what could I say that could actually be helpful or useful to you in the future? And I thought perhaps tell the story of how I sort of came to be here. How did some of these things happen? And maybe there's some lessons there, because I often find myself wondering, how did this happen? So when I was young, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I got older. People kept asking me, but then eventually I thought that the idea of inventing things would be really cool. And the reason I thought that was because I read a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which said that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's really true. If you go back, say 300 years, the things that we take for granted today you'd be burned at the stake for. Being able to fly, that's crazy. Being able to see over long distances, being able to communicate, having effectively with the internet a group mind of sorts, and having access to all the world's information instantly from almost anywhere on the earth. This is stuff that really would be magic, or would be considered magic in times past. In fact, I think it actually goes beyond that, because there are many things that we take for granted today that weren't even imagined in times past. They weren't even in the realm of magic. So it actually goes beyond that. So I thought, well, if I can do some of those things, basically if I can advance technology, then that's like magic, and that would be really cool. And I also had sort of a slight existential crisis, because I was trying to figure out what does it all mean? Like, what's the purpose of things? And I came to the conclusion that if we can advance the knowledge of the world, if we can do things that expand the scope and scale of consciousness, then we're better able to ask the right questions and become more enlightened, and that's really the only way forward. So I studied physics and business, because I figured in order to do a lot of these things, you need to know how the universe works, and you need to know how the economy works. And you also need to be able to bring a lot of people together to work with you to create something, because it's very difficult to do something as an individual if it's a significant technology. So I originally came out to California to try to figure out how to improve the energy density of electric vehicles, basically to try to figure out if there was an advanced capacitor that could serve as an alternative to batteries. And that was in '95, and that's also when the internet started to happen. And I thought, well, I can either pursue this technology where success may not be one of the possible outcomes, which is always tricky, or participate in the internet and be part of it. So I decided to drop out. Now, obviously, unfortunately, we're past graduation, so I can't be accused of recommending that to you. So did some internet stuff. Did a few things here and there. One of which was PayPal. And I think maybe it's helpful to say one of the things that was important then in the creation of PayPal was kind of how it started, because initially, the initial thought was with PayPal was to create an agglomeration of financial services, so to have one place where all of your financial services needs would be seamlessly integrated and work smoothly. And then we had like a little feature which was to do email payments. And whenever we'd show the system off to someone, we'd show the hard part, which was the agglomeration of financial services, which was quite difficult to